So I've actually been wanting to test drive and review the Hyundai Staria, and finally it's here with us. Gone is the Hyundai Starex, which has been very popular in the Philippines for many years. In its place is this, the Staria. Let's give it a review. What we have is the 2023 Hyundai Staria 2.2 GLS Plus, and it's priced at 2,320,000 Philippine pesos. By the way, this competes directly with the Toyota Hiace GL Grandia. Before we continue, I'd just like to apologize if the van is quite dirty. It has been raining the past few days and a car wash doesn't seem to be a wise decision at this point. Anyway, looking at its exterior, the Staria takes things to the next level with its eye-catching and futuristic design. In front is a full-width LED light bar, which makes this instantly recognizable. The LED DRLs are also here, and being the GLS Plus, we only get a pair of multi-reflector LED headlights. At least, they're LED. You'll also notice that turn signals are neatly integrated into the front grille. I'd prefer though if that front grille is gloss black instead of body colored. The side is pretty basic with its flat design and smaller 17-inch alloy wheels on Nex and Rodian tires. But we also have huge windows, which we'll talk about more in just a bit. And towards the back, this understandably looks a bit more basic than the top spec premium variant. We still get those tall vertical taillights, but they're only halogens now, and at least we still do have those pixel patterns in them. We also have a rear fog light on the left taillight. Opening the huge manual tailgate, the Staria reveals a variable amount of space. Depending on how much legroom you want for the passengers, that's where the space will depend. If ever you do need more space for maybe 3 small pieces of luggage, but still want the full capacity of 11 passengers, you won't have to worry. And if ever you do need way more space than that, you can always adjust the rear seat depending on what you need. And really, a power tailgate is much needed here. And now we're inside the Hyundai Staria, and as you can see, I'm quite far from you because this is very spacious inside. We'll talk about more of that in just a bit when we get to the back seats. But anyway, here in front you can see that the Staria has a very futuristic dashboard design as well. It's very modern. It's a step up, a huge step up compared to the Starex before. So you can see it's a very curvy design. Again, it's very spacious here. And yeah, all the materials here are also pretty good, despite them all being hard touch plastic. So there you go, it's all hard touch plastic. Here on this side, hard touch plastic everywhere. Same on the door panels, hard touch plastic everywhere. But that's also expected in a van like this. And again, going back to design, I really like how the screens were placed here, though they don't look like they were afterthoughts at all. So that's all really nice, really modern here inside. Then also here the door panel, again hard touch plastics as I mentioned, and there's no leather for at least for the armrest, but at the same time, because of the design of the armrest, it does feel pretty comfortable despite it being plastic. And then for the steering wheel, it's that usual Hyundai design steering wheel. I'm not really a huge fan of it, but here in the Staria it does look pretty good. Of course, this is tilt and telescopic, so there does have plenty of adjustment, which does make driving this vehicle way easier and way more comfortable. Then we have our controls for our audio on the left, our Bluetooth phone on the right, our cruise control, and controls for the instrument cluster. Then for the horn, so it's a really nice sounding horn. It does feel a bit too quiet, but it does sound really nice. And also we have these really nice looking stalks. So yeah, I really like how they look. They are gloss black, but I did notice that they don't have the tendency to attract fingerprints, so that's pretty good. Then speaking of the instrument cluster, which I just mentioned, we do have it over there. So it's a floating style instrument cluster, and the placement is actually really nice because it's well within your line of sight when you're driving this vehicle. And it's the typical instrument cluster that you get in Hyundai vehicles, so it has that usual design. Of course, it does show plenty of information such as our trip computer, our different settings, a speedometer, digital speedometer, and then also our tire pressure monitoring system. And the graphics can also be changed depending on your driving mode. So we have 3 different modes: the Eco, Normal, and Sport. And also right next to that instrument cluster, we do have a cup holder on the dashboard right up there. We have some storage areas, so 2 of them, which is really nice. So you can hide some stuff over there. And also we have more storage here in the door panel. Going back here, we have lots of storage on top. We have the second level, so ground floor, basement 1, basement 2, and basement 3. So we have 4 different levels of storage. So this is very practical in terms of storage space. I mean, it's a huge vehicle, so it has to be. Then moving here to the center, we have our 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system. And despite it being just 8 inches with this huge vehicle, it doesn't feel small at all. And also, it's the typical Hyundai and Kia infotainment system. So it's very responsive. I like that. It's very basic. It's very easy to use. So this is one of the best infotainment systems in terms of ease of use. We also have some touch-sensitive buttons on the left and right, which are very responsive, just like the rest of the screen. Of course, we have 2 knobs over there, one for the volume and one for tuning. And we also have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which, as usual, are very big disappointments in Hyundai vehicles. So again, wireless Apple CarPlay in a Hyundai always disconnects. I cannot find the option to connect using a wired connection, so that's very unfortunate again. And then moving down, we have our manual climate control. So it's just manual, so we have our knob for our fan speed over here, turn it off. We have our temperature knob on the right, and we have some controls for the rear aircon over here as well. Manual, of course. They also have their own temperature, which we'll show you in a bit. And then our different modes, and then we have our recirculation button over here, which I think is quite cute, because in other cars they just recycle the button from other models, but here in the Staria you actually have a Staria on the recirculation button. So that's a really nice little detail that Hyundai has done over here. Then moving a bit down, we have some buttons over here as well. We have our drive mode selector for the drive modes I mentioned earlier, and then we have our auto hold function over there. We also have here the button for our 360 cam, which of course will appear on the screen. So we have different views. We have a top down on the right side. We have our different views at the back, a wide, corner view, top down view that zooms into what's immediately behind you. So that is very nice. Of course, the front and sides are also visible over there. And then below we have more storage and a wireless phone charger over there. And it's also rubberized, so your phone won't be moving around. And then here we have our gear shifter. So it's not electronic like on the top of the line model, which we'll show you next time, by the way. So it's just a normal shifter, but it does feel really nice. The placement is also really good. So there we go. So just the usual shifter. And yeah, we have front parking sensors, as you can hear. And again, yeah, really nice. Then moving down there, we have 2 USB ports and a 12-volt power outlet and 2 more levels of storage. So this, again, storage galore in the Hyundai Staria. And here in the middle, as you can see here, we have 2 cup holders and, well, more storage. So 3 areas for storage over there, 2 cup holders. And if ever you do need extra space, this can be put up. And now we have a third seat, or a middle seat. So you can actually fit 3 people here in front of the Hyundai Staria, and this seat's actually pretty good for children and smaller adults. Then if ever you do want to return this into the former position, just pull up this lever over here, or whatever this is called, and just hold the seat down, and you again have those storage spaces over there. And these seats are actually quite comfortable, so very good support, very good bolstering on the sides, and the seats themselves are also perforated. And this leather is actually faux leather, it's leatherette, but it does feel pretty nice. And since this is the GLS Plus, they are in beige. And now we're here in the second row of the Staria GLS Plus, and this vehicle is an 11-seater, hence the bench seat that we have here in the second row. So space, of course, is pretty good as you'd expect from a van. So very spacious, lots of leg room, lots of knee room, and we have, of course, enough space for 3 adults to sit here in the second row. Unfortunately, we don't get armrests, of course, but this will do if you need the capacity. But you can always rest your arm if you're on the side, so make sure to sit on the side. Then we have 2 cup holders over there, and we have this window that supposedly opens. Unfortunately, I cannot find how to open it. Whatever I do, it won't open, so there is that, unfortunately. And then what stuff we do get here, we have 2 USB ports down there in the center, and we have our aircon vents controls on the right side. So we do have the temperature, again, different zones as well, and our fan speed. And if ever you do want to give more space to the rear passengers, you can always slide the seat forward manually. So there we go, very easy, and lots of adjustment. So yeah, and even if you slide it a bit forward, there is still a lot of space. Same goes if you're seated here in the middle, there is a lot of space, and actually even extra space to put your foot in between the seats in front. And now we're here in the third row of the Staria GLS Plus, and this is actually the place to be in this vehicle. As you can see, we have a pair of captain seats back here, which of course takes comfort to the next level compared to the other seats in this vehicle. So we don't have bench seats as we usually find in other vans. Instead, we have captain seats. And of course, a center armrest over here, which is really nice. The seats themselves are very comfortable, so they're a bit softer, and yeah, it's a really good place to relax back here. And this is my preferred seat in this vehicle. And same, we can adjust it forward and back if we have to for the rear passenger. If you want more legroom, you can always slide it way back. And actually, folding the fourth row seat up will actually give you even more space back here. So yeah, this is a really nice place to be. And of course, passengers here aren't forgotten. We have 2 cup holders, a storage area, and 2 USB ports on each side. And finally, the very last row, the 4th row. And understandably, this is the tightest among all the seats here, but still very comfortable, and we still do have enough space. This seat, of course, can move forward for more space. And if not in use, we can always fold this up and slide it forward. So yeah, a very good place to be, every seat in this car actually. But of course, again, the 3rd row is still the best. We still have that storage again that I mentioned earlier, and USB ports, so no problem over here. And by the way, we do have sunshades on the window, so one here for the 3rd and 4th row, and then we have another for the 2nd row as well. And now we're driving the Hyundai Staria, and first impression, this doesn't feel like how big it is. So it feels a lot smaller. It feels like you're driving a normal everyday car. So this is a really big vehicle. But anyway, let's talk about that more later. Let's talk about the engine first now. So this is powered by a 2.2 liter 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine, and that produces 177 horsepower and around 430 Newton meters of torque, paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission on this GLS Plus variant. And those are really good numbers, and it definitely translates to the way this drives. And by the way, it's currently raining quite hard right now, so I apologize if you can hear a bit of that rain, but yeah, we really can't do anything about that. We're returning this car tomorrow. We have to finish this review. So anyway, the moment I started driving the Staria, I was actually quite surprised about how light this is and how that engine is chill. It's a really good engine. I believe it's the same engine that you get in the Hyundai Santa Fe, so I'm not surprised why it feels really good, because that came from a crossover. And it's actually gonna be a bit weird saying this because this is a van, but it's actually quite fun to drive. So put your foot on the pedal, and it's so responsive. The transmission shifts really well. The 8-speed automatic transmission, it performs really, really well. And given how heavy this vehicle is, it doesn't feel that way. But really, driving performance is not that important in this kind of vehicle. It's more of comfort because this is a van. But if ever you do want to drive this yourself, it's gonna be very easy. And one thing that makes it very easy is the steering and handling, because we have a very light steering over here. It's so light that it doesn't feel like, again, that this is a van. It feels like you're driving a much smaller car, maybe a crossover, a compact crossover like the Hyundai Tucson. It is just really light, which I really like. And despite it being light, it's not devoid of feedback. So just turn the steering wheel a bit and it instantly responds. It's quite sharp actually, surprisingly. And if you do want a bit more weight, just put the car in sport mode and it will get a bit heavier, which will make this much more enjoyable. But of course, again, this is a van, so it's not designed to be fun, but it actually really is. And then more that contributes to that really good handling is how planted this actually is. So I actually took this on a road trip and there were a bit of twisties over there, and this van just is really planted. You don't feel any body roll at all, maybe because of how wide it actually is. And yeah, this is actually something that I see myself driving if ever I would need a van. And what Hyundai has done here is something that usually, of course, you would be seated at the back if you buy a van, but in case you do need to drive one, you won't find any trouble at all with the Hyundai Staria. And like I mentioned earlier, again, this doesn't feel like it's a van, so it feels a lot smaller than it actually is. And driving through tight areas like, let's say, the parking at my condo is actually surprisingly very easy. And then it's made even easier with the help of the 360 camera, which we also have in this vehicle. And yeah, honestly, it really is quite big. I mean, it's not obvious. If it's not obvious, I don't know what you think of it, if it's small or what, but it is really, really big. And yet, I feel like I'm just driving any other crossover, like I've said earlier. And of course, being a van, ride quality is almost excellent. It absorbs the bumps really well, although of course there are those huge potholes now, especially now that it's quite rainy. There are huge potholes that this won't be able to hide from you, but still it does the great job of absorbing most of the imperfections on the road. Of course, this is what a van gives us: comfort on the road as passengers. NVH insulation on the other hand is a bit mixed, so it does do well, and it also does have the need to improve in some aspects. So for the most part, road noise is actually quite well insulated. So despite the Nexen tires, which I've usually noticed do have the tendency to be quite noisy, this one is actually really quiet. Wind noise on the other hand is something that you will notice, but you have to consider the fact that this is a van and we have upright windows, upright everything, so that's expected from this kind of vehicle. And then vibrations on the other hand, something that is also really good considering that this is a diesel. It's actually very refined. The engine's very refined. You don't feel that much of the vibrations inside the cabin, which is great. You don't really feel that diesel clatter, especially when you're idling at stoplights, intersections, or waiting for someone inside the vehicle. So very refined diesel engine, although it's not as refined as I expected. I was expecting it to be something as refined as the Hyundai Tucson, but still, compared to other diesel engines, this is extremely refined. It's excellent in that regard. And then visibility is something that this also does really well. I talked about earlier having large windows, and that really helps a lot with the visibility. I don't know if you can see it right now, but the window line here on the driver's side is actually almost the same level as my leg, so you can see really well out of this window. Same on the passenger side, you can see really well out of it. You have huge side mirrors, you have the huge windshield, very thin A-pillars, and another huge windshield out back. And also, you'll probably see it by now, I'll use it now, the rear wiper is also huge. So in case you are on the highway and visibility at the back becomes poor because of the rain, you will still be able to see a lot out of that rear windshield thanks to that rear wiper. Unfortunately, no one can drive for me right now, so we'll have to make do with talking about the driving experience from the driver's seat. But still, even if you're a passenger, it is quite comfortable at the back. Of course, that's expected again. And that third row that I mentioned earlier, which is the place to be, is really the place to be in this car. But I really won't mind driving something like this. And now let's talk about turning radius really quickly, because I'm gonna make this U-turn, and as expected, very easy. So currently we're taking up 2 lanes of the opposite side. Yeah, but no problem at all with that. It's what you'd expect again from a van, and a bit better honestly if you ask me. So going back to how it is riding at the back, I must say that the Hyundai Staria really is comfortable, and considering this is just the 11-seater variant, still not the best that it can offer. So hopefully soon we get to try out the 7-seater version, or I think it's an 8-seater. But anyway, that's the premium variant, and actually we will be able to try it soon because I already have it in my calendar. So yeah, hopefully that one will provide us even more comfort than this one already does give us. And then another thing that surprised me with this van is the fuel economy. So this actually does really well in terms of fuel economy. Inside the city, with a decent amount of traffic, it was quite heavy, moderate at most. I was able to achieve 11 kilometers per liter, which really is quite good for a van this size, a vehicle this size. So that's really good. And on the highway, I was able to achieve around 19 kilometers per liter, which again, pretty good. I'd probably say that that's thanks to the transmission combo of this vehicle. We have an 8-speed again, so the vehicle will be resting at a higher gear when you're on the highway. And before we end, let's talk about driver assistance features, because this doesn't have any, or maybe it does have partially. So we don't get stuff like autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control. Those are reserved for the premium variant. But what we do get here are Hyundai's blind spot cameras. So we have them on the left and on the right, and they're displayed here on the instrument cluster, which is a really good place actually to put it, because you don't limit your view of the road, or rather, you don't have to take your eyes off the road. Like, let's say in Honda's system where you have to look at the screen over here, this one, it's within your line of sight, which is something that's pretty good. And we have both left and right sides, and it does show us the most optimal angle for looking at your blind spot. And to turn them on, you just simply have to put on your turn signal depending on the direction that you want to go. And I'm looking at it right now, and it does provide us a better view of our blind spot compared to the side mirrors. And especially now, in this case that's raining, You really can't see clearly out of that, so here in the blind spot camera you can see very clearly. What I only have to say about it is that it is a bit small, but yeah, I guess it's still better than not having it. It's still really helpful despite it being a bit small. The Hyundai Staria is not the first choice when it comes to getting a van. That usually goes to the Toyota Hiace. What the Staria offers is something that will be comfortable for everyone, something that stands out among the sea of Hiace vans, and something that anyone can drive when they have to. If you ask me, I'd get this 100%.